Yeah, but now let's dive right into our conversation. We have so much to talk about, Kurt, and I've been dying to get your take on this. Robert Sarver, um, he's been suspended. The year-long investigation by the NBA has come to a close, resulted in a year-long suspension, where he cannot be anywhere near both the Phoenix Suns and the Phoenix Mercury facilities. Um, and the team, sorry, he has been fined $10 million, the maximum permitted by the NBA Constitution and bylaws. What effect is this going to have on these two teams, the Mercury and the Suns?
I think that that's going to be really interesting, and how the players react, because we're less than 2 weeks now from the opening of training camp, and for the NBA, and the second Chris Paul sits down at that table, the second Devin Booker sits down at the table to talk about the upcoming season, the first question is going to be about Sarver, and the second question, and they're how they handle it is going to be really interesting. This is Corey, the team that led the league in wins last year that we had thought were kind of the favorites going into the playoffs, and obviously the loss to Dallas, especially getting just crushed in the last game, kind of it left questions, right? I'll put it politely. Aside the bad taste in your mouth, it leaves questions about where they go. And there's a lot of on the court, is Cam Johnson going to start? Does Jay Crowder want to be there? Is there more DeAndre Ayton? There's all these basketball interesting questions, and it's how they're going to deal with, I don't want to say being overshadowed, but at least to start the camp, like the first questions are going to be about Sarver. And it'll also be interesting to see, look, there's a lot, I don't think it's a secret. I wrote about this. I think there's a lot of people around the league who thought the punishment was light. Is there going to be pressure on the players to deal with that? Or are they going to be more, how is Chris Paul and company going to handle this? Are they just going to be like, hey, that was the league's decision. The league made its choice. We're here to play basketball. Or are they going to take a more activist role? I think there's a lot. It's going to be just the Phoenix Suns media day got a lot more interesting, Corey.
Absolutely. And it's interesting too, when you think about the vocal leaders, like you said, Chris Paul is one of the most vocal leaders in the entire NBA, particularly on social justice issues. So when you think about this investigation, which by the way, last year you mentioned this team performed extremely well in the face of this investigation, like mid-investigation. And I thought, okay, talking about a distraction, Monty Williams still won Coach of the Year. The team was still great, So in that sense, with DeAndre Ayton not getting that extension, that max extension, in that sense, I was actually very surprised to see the resiliency of this team, the Phoenix Suns. And then you add in this year, Phoenix Mercury, Brittany Griner's overseas, everything that's going on with her detention in Russia. I mean, there was so much around that team as well. Diana Taurasi, is she healthy? Is she going to retire? All these questions that they're dealing with as well. A new coach with Sandy Brunell. So there was all these things around Phoenix as an organization, both NBA and WNBA, but still that idea of championship aspirations. But when you add in the ownership question, in my mind, my eyes go straight to the WNBA first. Because in basketball, it seems as though the WNBA is always first in leading when it comes to these issues. And I'm just reminded of Kelly Loeffler. Remember that with the Atlanta Dream?
Oh, yeah.
Where the owner clashed with the players. It then resulted in the players being so vocal to actually cheer for and support and go create like a voting movement for her opponent, and then get her out of ownership.
Yeah, I don't think it. I don't want to say it changed that election, but it certainly changed part of the tone of it, right? Like it had, and the WNBA's activism on that front had an impact, like at the ballot box. And so, I'm curious as well. How is the WNBA going to deal with this? And also, what's the power structure like? Is there a power vacuum? Who's making WNBA? They're going to head into free agency. They're going to head into the draft. Who's making decisions about how much we're willing to spend, what moves we're willing to make? Obviously, I think we're all hoping Brittany Griner's back next season. And that's a little beyond their control, but they've got a lot of other decisions. And then the same sort of with the Suns, right? Like they're going to go into the season. Jay Crowder's kind of pushing for a trade. Are they going to make a move? What happens when they get to the trade deadline? They're in the tax. Are they going to find ways to lower that number, or do they care? Like there's ownership level decisions that somebody's going to have to make.
And the suspension, I'm going to read it here from the NBA's statement. Robert Sarver cannot be present at any NBA or WNBA team facility, including any office, arena, or practice facility, cannot attend or participate in any NBA or WNBA event or activity, including games, practices, or business partner activity, represent the Suns or Mercury in any public or private capacity, or have any involvement with the business or basketball operation of the Suns or Mercury, or have any involvement in the business, governance, or activities of either the WNBA or the NBA, including attending or participating in meetings of either league's board and their associated board committees. So you're right. I mean, you're talking about all the things that you just mentioned. Who's going to sign off on those things and help these teams achieve their championship aspirations? And is this going to shorten the championship window for the Suns? In addition to, the fundamental question of, well, how will the players react? Do they even want to play for an owner like this? That's the first question. And like I said, my eyes will go straight to the WNBA to see how they will react and respond. And I think that will then precipitate the NBA's reaction. And, to have Chris Paul there, that's going to be, especially on the short window, and he's the key to their success in the championship. If he's not into it, then that's going to be, I think we're going to see a potential implosion in Phoenix.
Yeah. I would just say, I think it's pretty clear that Adam Silver and the NBA owners did not want to go farther with this, with a more severe, more stiff punishment or whatever steps they might have taken with Sarver, in part because he was going to push back. He reportedly wasn't happy with this. He's not going to just take this lying down. So if they are not going to go farther, it's going to be up to the players or some other mechanism of public pressure to change that, if anything's going to change it, because the league is pretty set. They don't really want to go there, and they would probably have to be pushed that way.
But when you think about Adam Silver's relationship with the owners, even let's go back to like Donald Sterling. Remember that back, when was that?
2014.
Yes. It seems like he's taken a pretty strong stance historically.
Yeah, I think Sterling was a different situation on a couple of fronts. There was absolutely a smoking gun. We're not listening to audio tapes of Robert Sarver. We all heard the audio tapes of Donald Sterling, and it's just more visceral that way, right? Like when you see a video or you hear that audio, it's different than reading it in a report, whether that's fair or not, or whether, the list of the crime, it had that reaction, but it also happened right in the playoffs with Chris Paul and those guys kind of reacting on the court. And it wasn't just them. Like LeBron James at the time was quoted as saying Sarver has, not Sarver has to go, but basically Sarver, like there was a pushback from other fans. And the bigger issue for the league was State Farm pulled back from Clippers and some advertising on Clippers games. Same with Kia, same with Corona, same with CarMax. Like once the sponsors started getting involved, look, man, it's still business. Once you hit the bottom line, all the other owners felt, and Adam Silver felt differently. That hasn't happened here, at least to this point. And part of what's going on is this got dropped in the deadest part of the NBA offseason, right? Like there is nothing going on. There's, we're talking about this now. Fans are listening to this and thinking about it. And tomorrow night there's an NFL game. And this weekend, there's pressure on Notre Dame. There are big college football games, and we're going to move the WNBA finals. The baseball playoffs are coming up, and those changes. And I think it is possible that the sporting psyche moves on from this, and it never reaches the crescendo it did with Sterling.
We will see. Keep an eye on that.